Only 20% of people have a real friend at work, and I think that's why we're all burning out. Hey everyone, I'm Terry, and that statistic has been haunting me because it explains so much. If you haven't heard, Lenny's newsletter surveyed over 8,200 tech workers recently. Nearly 45% are experiencing significant burnout right now. But here's what's wild. It's hitting mid-career people the most, people with 7 to 14 years of experience. Now, there's tons of advice out there about managing burnout. Better boundaries, time management, self-care routines. These things help, but I think we're missing something fundamental. My parents worked at the same companies for decades and actually looked forward to going to work. It's because they had real friends there. Then I watched this show called Severance, where workers have their memories completely separated between work and personal life. But even these severed workers miss their workplace when they're apart. Why? Because of the connections they've built. It made me wonder, maybe burnout isn't just about workload or bad managers. Maybe we've lost something essential, which is the genuine human connection. Here's what I've noticed. In tech, work has become incredibly transactional. Think about your typical day. You check your Slack, answer questions, attend meetings, discuss requirements, decode reviews, push to production. Everything's so efficient, so professional, and so outcome focused. But when was the last time you had a genuine conversation with a colleague? Not about work, about anything human. I realized recently that I could work with someone for a month and know almost nothing about them as a person. I know they're really good at data pipelines. I know they ask really thoughtful questions in meetings, but I couldn't tell you what they did last weekend, what they're passionate about, or really anything about who they are as a human being. And this isolation isn't just making work lonelier. I think it's actually contributing to our burnout. When work becomes purely transactional, when we're just resources completing tasks, it becomes really difficult to find meaning in what we're doing. You start feeling like a cog in a machine. And cogs don't have bad days. Cogs don't need encouragement. Cogs don't celebrate wins together. But we're not cogs, we're humans. And humans need connection to thrive. Some of the projects I've enjoyed most in my career weren't necessarily the most technically challenging ones. They were the ones where I genuinely liked working with the people involved, where I could joke around when things got frustrating, or someone actually cared enough to ask how my weekend was and listen to the answer. There's this concept called bids for connection. When someone makes a small gesture towards building a relationship, asking how you're doing, sharing something personal, making a joke, you can either engage with it or ignore it. And unfortunately, in most tech workplaces, we've gotten really good at ignoring these moments. Someone shares they're excited about a weekend trip. You say, "That's nice," and back to work. Someone makes a joke, you have a polite laugh, move on. Someone mentions having a tough day. You say, "Sorry to hear that," and then we're done. We think this is being professional, but what if we're actually missing the opportunities to build the connections that make work meaningful? I've seen really talented people leave the tech industry entirely, not for better opportunities. They just couldn't do it anymore. The work felt empty. When I talk to them, it's rarely about the technical challenges. It's about feeling isolated, feeling like their work doesn't matter to anyone, like they could disappear tomorrow and nobody would notice, except for that unassigned Jira tickets. The research backs this up. People with strong relationships at work are 7 times more likely to be engaged. They're less likely to burn out, less likely to leave, more productive. But only 20% of the people report having a close friend at work. I was talking to a friend who works at a more traditional company, non-tech company, and she was describing how her team goes out for lunch every Friday, how they know about each other's kids, each other's hobbies, how when someone is going through a tough time, everyone actually has their back. And it made me think, when was the last time you experienced that kind of community in a tech job? When did work feel like a place where people genuinely cared about each other? Part of this is remote work. It's harder to build relationships over video calls, but I think it goes deeper. We've created a culture where being professional means being emotionally distant, where efficiency trumps human connection. And maybe that's why so many of us are burning out. Maybe humans aren't designed to spend most of their waking hours feeling disconnected from everyone around them. So then I started experimenting. Nothing forced, just being more intentional about connections. It's really the small things. When someone shares something personal in Slack, instead of just hitting an emoji reaction, I asked a follow-up question. When we're waiting for a meeting to start, instead of diving into work topics, I might mention something I read or asked about their weekend. I sometimes even venture into that dangerous area of being a little too touchy-feely. But most people are actually hungry for this. They want to connect. They're just waiting for someone else to make the first move. Last month, A colleague mentioned they were stressed out about buying their first house. Instead of just saying, "Good luck with that," I shared my own house buying experience, the goods and the terrible parts. We ended up talking for 10 minutes about the mortgage rates, about how crazy the real estate market is. Not earth-shattering, but we both walked away feeling a lot more connected. I started doing human check-ins in my one-on-ones. Before diving into project updates, I asked how they're doing as a person. You'd be surprised how rarely people get asked that question at work. I occasionally work from the cafeterias and invite my colleagues to join me. Not formal co-working, just being around each other. Some of my best conversations happen during those informal moments. Try having lunch with your colleagues instead of eating at your desk. If you're remote, suggest an optional virtual coffee break for your team. Share something about yourself, your weekend plans, what you're watching, what excites you outside of work. It's okay if not everyone wants this. Some people prefer the separation between work and personal life, but more people are open to it than you think. They're just waiting for someone else to make the first move. The key is starting small and being genuine about it. I keep coming back to those statistics I mentioned in the beginning. Nearly half of us are burnt out. Only 20% of us have a close friend at work. That's not a coincidence. Think about the best job you've ever had. I bet it wasn't primarily because of the salary or the benefits. It was probably because of the people, because you feel like you belonged, because you looked forward to seeing your colleagues. We spent more time with our work colleagues than with our families. If those relationships are purely transactional, of course we're going to feel burnout. Of course work is going to feel empty. But if we can build genuine connections at work, if we see each other as complete human beings instead of just functional roles, work starts to feel different. It starts to feel like a community. Maybe this resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. But if you are feeling burned out, if work feels empty or isolating, maybe the solution isn't just better time management or clearer boundaries. Maybe it's the connection. Start small. Be curious about the people around you. Look for those bits for connection and try engaging instead of turning away. It might feel awkward at first. We're all out of practice, but I think that's worth trying because we're all just humans trying to do meaningful work together. And humans tend to work better when they actually know and care about each other. Alright, let me know in the comments below. Do you have genuine connections at work? What's helped you build those connections with your colleagues? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.